On 28th of September 2020, the Home Secretary asked the Migration Advisory Committee to research the intra-company transfer route. And the reason was very simple. The intra-company transfer route did not adequately address the market needs. For example, it did not allow more than one employer or more than one worker to come to the UK for the purposes of establishing a branch or a subsidiary of the overseas business. And another problem with the intra-company transfer route was that it overlapped and in various parts it duplicated the skilled worker route. And of course, there were some benefits to the intra-company transfer routes. For example, there was no English language test and some allowances, for example, with regards to the housing costs could be included into the calculations when deciding whether or not the employer or a worker met the salary threshold. And also there was some flexibility with regards to how much time any particular worker could spend outside. But overall, the intra-company transfer route did not adequately help the workers to establish their business here in the UK. So the Migration Advisory Committee prepared a very detailed report, and they made a number of suggestions, and the Home Secretary did analyze the report, and they have taken a number of suggestions on board, and this is how the global business mobility route was born. So it consists of 5 categories, and 3 of these categories are the improved versions of the old intra-company transfer route, and 2 are completely new visa routes. So I decided to create a video series where I'll be explaining all these 5 categories. So the purpose of this particular video is to give you an overview of these 5 visa routes and also to show you the similarities between them. However, if you would like to know more about any particular route which I'm going to mention in this video, you're very welcome to go to the description of this video, where I will be adding the links to the videos which I'll be creating and uploading to YouTube, explaining each particular visa route in this global business mobility category. For now, just let me explain and summarize these 5 categories of the UK global business mobility route. So what is the purpose of all these global business mobility visas? The idea behind all global business mobility visas is to enable workers from outside the UK to come to the UK on a kind of a temporary assignment, usually when they have their main employer outside the UK, and they come here to do some tasks. We can broadly put these visas into 2 categories: those where the employer has got some presence in the UK, when they have a legal entity which is already in the UK, and those firms where they don't have any presence in the UK. And those routes which are aimed at the companies with the UK presence are senior and special workers, graduate trainees, and secondment workers. And the second one is without UK presence in the UK are the UK expansion workers, service suppliers, and again the secondment workers. And as you've noticed, the secondment worker type of visa goes into these 2 categories, and that is because they can apply irrespective of whether or not their company has established the UK presence, or they can also apply where they don't have anyone here in the UK. So the idea in this video is to introduce you to all 5 types of visas and explain what they're all about. And if you would like to know more, as I create new videos for all types of the global visa mobility visas, I'll be adding these links in the video description section, so you can jump to if you would like to know more about one of these routes. And also at the end of this video, I'm going to summarize the 5 routes, and I'm going to show you the similarities between these 5 types of visas. So let me describe the UK Senior and Specialist Worker Visa. This type of visa is usually for the senior managers who would like to come to the UK in order to help with establishing the UK presence, or they're here to help and clone the business which was successfully established outside the UK. This type of visa is for someone who knows exactly what they're doing and they have extensive experience in running the company, in managing people, and also in intricate details of the business. The UK Graduate Trainee Visa, well, the name says it all. This is for someone who is a graduate trainee and who wants to become a manager. So these guys are future managers, and in order for them to get a managerial position, they need to undertake a training in the UK. So when someone applies, not only they have to prove that they are graduate trainees, they also have to prove why they need to undertake a training in the UK. And usually this is limited to 12 months, and after that the person will need to get a managerial position straight away. And this is quite similar to someone who wants to become a solicitor. So before they can qualify as solicitors, they need to do a training. Usually it's a 2-year training, and they are called trainee solicitors. And after that, once this is successfully accomplished, they can become solicitors. The next one is the UK Secondment Worker Visa. Again, this is a temporary route. The secondment worker route is for overseas workers undertaking temporary work assignments in the UK, where the worker is being seconded to the UK as part of a high-value contract or investment by their employer overseas. Secondment is the assignment of a member of one organization to another organization for a temporary basis. The next one, the UK Expansion Worker Visa. This particular route replaced an old overseas business representative route, and as the name suggests, this is for usually a senior worker who comes to the UK to establish their presence in the UK. So this route is suitable for the companies where they don't have the established presence in the UK and they would like to establish one. So these two routes are quite similar, so because they are both for someone in the managerial position and they both know very well what they're doing. However, this one is to oversee already established business in the UK, and this one is to expand to the UK, to open something new. And the final one, which is called the UK Service Supplier Visa. This particular visa is for overseas workers who are undertaking temporary work assignments in the UK, where a worker can be either a contractual service supplier employed by an overseas service provider, or they can also be self-employed independent professionals based overseas, and they need to undertake an assignment in the UK to provide services covered by one of the UK's international trades agreements. And in my opinion, it will help you tremendously if I walk you through the similarities of all these 5 visa types. Because when you start watching my detailed videos explaining these types of visas, I don't want you to get overwhelmed, because there is a lot of information to take in. And therefore, I think the first step will be for you to try and understand all common features between these 5 visas. Okay, let's begin with the sad news. Unfortunately, no applicants under the global business mobility visas routes, irrespective of the type of the visa they're applying for, will not be able to settle. So this is sad. They've taken away these rights quite some time ago. And therefore, if you'd like to remain in the UK, if you'd like to live here, you need to explore other work-related routes. Maybe the closest one to these ones is going to be a skilled worker. I have done a few videos explaining this route, so just browse my channel and you'll find one of the videos which explains this route. And another thing which is quite common is that the majority of the global business mobility visas have the restriction on the amount of time they can spend in the UK. So unless someone applies as a graduate trainee, or unless they are applying under this route as a high earner, they cannot spend more than 5 years in any 6-year period of time, and this applies to any type of visas. And most importantly, when they're going to calculate the time, they're going to take into consideration the time you spent in any category, in any global business mobility category, as well as the old intra-company transfer routes. So this is something to remember. The second one is for the majority of these applications, the validity requirements are the same, and they consist of two elements. First of all, you have to understand the procedural rule, and secondly, the switching rules. The procedure rules are all about complying with the correct procedure, and the correct procedure consists of 4 steps. First of all, you'll need to complete the correct online application form, and they're the same for all 5 visa categories. If you're applying outside, it's going to be the form you need to complete is going to be the global business mobility visa. All forms are online, which is really handy. And the second one is if you're applying in the UK to extend your visa here or to switch to this category, then you'll need to complete this form, which is called global business mobility. So as you can see, the only difference between the two is this word visa. If you see the word visa in the application form, this means that this is for someone who applies outside the UK. And secondly, you need to pay the fee for the application. The visa fee will vary depending on the type of the application you're making, but all the applicants will need to pay the immigration health surcharge, which is the same for all 5 categories, which is going to be £624 per year. So if you intend to stay here for 3 years, then this means that this amount is going to be multiplied by 3. The next step in the procedure is you'll need to provide your passport together with all the supporting documents. Your passport is needed to prove your identity, your nationality, and your age. And if you are from the country which is on the Appendix T list, this means that you also need to submit your tuberculosis test certificate together with the application. And as with all other applications, you'll need to submit your biometrics together with the application. As part of meeting the validity requirements, you'll also need to satisfy the switching rules. Switching rule is a legal process which allows a person who is already in the UK to switch from one immigration category to another. So let's say someone came here as a student and then they got married. So they married a British citizen, and in these circumstances they will be required to make another application as a spouse of a British citizen, and if they do so, they will be switching. So they will be switching immigration categories. So what you need to remember, guys, here is that not all applicants who remain here in the UK lawfully can switch to one of the global business mobility visas. So those guys who are here as visitors, short-term students, or as parents of a child student, or as seasonal workers, or as a domestic worker in a private household, or if they remain here in the UK because they applied outside the immigration rules and their visa was approved, unfortunately they will not be able to switch to the global business mobility visa. So in these circumstances, if you're remaining in the UK lawfully in one of these categories, the only option for you will be to leave the country and reapply from outside. So the next common feature is the suitability requirements. Probably the very simple way to understand the suitability requirements, we need to think of a good character requirement. So these requirements are there to ensure that anyone who is given visa to the UK will not endanger already people who live in the UK. And therefore, after checking and that you meet the validity requirements, the decision makers will be checking that you meet the suitability requirements. And you can find an extensive list of all the suitability requirements at part 9 of the immigration rules. Let me show you how you can find them. You need to type in your browser part 9 immigration rules, and there you'll find all the rules relating to the suitability requirements. But just to give you an idea as to what these suitability requirements are all about, this is to make sure that you don't have any exclusion or deportation orders or criminal convictions. If you do, this will be referred to a special team where they'll see whether or not you can be allowed to enter the UK. They will also be checking if you were excluded from the country when you claimed asylum or humanitarian protection in in the country, whether or not you were involved in a sham marriage applications, made any false representations, breached immigration laws in any way, failed to provide the requested information, or if you have any unpaid debts to NHS of over £500, or if you have any unpaid litigation costs to the Home Office. So these were the suitability requirements, which are the same for the majority of UK visa applications. The next one, the financial requirements. Okay, so here you need to understand that those who apply to either switch to one of the global business mobility visas, or they apply to extend their visa, so in other words, they would like to stay here longer in the same immigration category, they will meet the financial requirements rules automatically if they were in the UK for more than 12 months, or if they have an A-rated Home Office registered and licensed a sponsor who is willing to support you financially. So in these circumstances, as long as your sponsor makes an entry in the certificate of sponsorship confirming that they're willing to support you financially for the first months of you living here in the UK, then in this case you will be absolutely fine. In all other situations, you will need to show that you have at least £1,270 in your bank account and you had it for at least 28 consecutive days at the date of the application. And of course, this amount is going to be more if you intend to apply with your dependents. Talking about dependents, all global business and mobility applicants will be allowed to invite their loved ones here in the UK. In the category of the dependents, the Home Office included only your spouse and the dependent children. Dependent children are those who are under the age of 18 and who do not lead an independent life, those who are not married and those who are still dependent on their parents. And also, just to draw your attention that all global business mobility visas are points-based applications, and therefore for those who would like to apply in any of the business mobility visa categories, they'll need to score a certain amount of points. So there are points-based requirements and non-points-based requirements. So for the points-based requirements, someone who applies as a senior specialist worker or a graduate trainee or UK expansion worker, they'll need to score 60 points, and service suppliers and secondment workers will need to score 40 points. And these were similarities between all 5 types of global business mobility visas. Guys, if you'd like to know more about any of these visas, please check the video description where I'm going to provide you with the links to the videos where I'll be explaining these visa routes in more detail.